Hi everyone. The door will close in a moment, I suppose, but just for now, my name is Chris Locke. I'm the area manager of ATEED, acting here in Albany, and I've just been appointed area manager for Auckland Central. I'm also the research and development investment manager for the area. So I've had a very, very interesting role picking up what goes on in the economy here, the dynamics of people starting new businesses, particularly those around new technology. And I based all of the knowledge that I bring today on what went on in my past to help others move forward with maybe a few less hassles and a bit more fun. My presentation today picks up on a lot of that to try and help you a few experiences, maybe a little war story along the way. But first of all, I'll just talk about the linkages that we have here. So I sit between the government and the council, interestingly enough, and the government is Callaghan Innovation. They come down through that route to help companies with the resources, support, ideas, and inspiration for research and development technology to help grow our economy. And there's some very, very strong drivers for that. They're quite easy to see here. This is Finland, and this here is non-exports back in 1989. This is Finland in 2008, and non-exports 2008 compared. New Zealand, non-exports 1989 and 2008. So what's happened is just bit by bit, New Zealand is falling a little bit behind the 8 ball. And you can see also all the various countries that we benchmark against. You can see Israel down through Finland and all the way down through Singapore, right down to New Zealand, on how we're investing as an economy in growing innovation to help us compete on the world stage. And what's fascinating in there is that compared to the OECD averages, this line here is New Zealand. We're actually really strong in the thinking and the writing and the scheming and the inventing. What we're not so good on is actually applying it in such a way that we can protect and grow our market. So where I work is to try and help people realise how to turn an idea into revenue for the longer term for the economy. We talk constantly about innovation these days. Excellent quote from the chairman of from Sweden about how innovation is actually the conversion of knowledge and competence back to money. New Zealand thinks innovation is creating ideas. Innovation is taking an idea and getting it moving in a creative way. Callaghan's role with the research and development is to sit right in the middle of all sorts of agencies and programs to help businesses find the way through. You've got your idea and you're feeding in. There are entrepreneurs, there are people like you and me, there are those who come out of large companies and they've got ideas to grow. It's all feeding in, and the idea is coming out this side, we connect the companies to KIA, which is the Kiwi Expats Abroad Association, which is all these New Zealanders living all around the world who are helping New Zealanders get into the market. We go and help people through the angels and the VIFs and all the others to find the funds. So it's a big and complex machine to help the people go from a startup to being a large, intensive R&D company, like we all know, like Hamilton Jet and the others. ATEED, you've heard a lot about ATEED with the V8s and the Rugby World Cup and the yachting and everything else. ATEED is a very interesting thing that happened recently where all the councils of Auckland were amalgamated together, the regional council like, and all just went into one big exciting pot. Hadn't been done in the world before. Everyone around the world is watching what we're doing. Our role within that is economic growth, and we have pulled together the tourism, which brings people in to spend money in our economy, events, which makes them want to come to our economy, and economic development that helps the businesses grow to support those who come to visit our economy. We've done very, very well. We're sitting there right alongside Hong Kong, Singapore, Sydney and Melbourne as our performance for centres of excellence and innovation, nice places to live, all sorts of things. There are surveys going the whole time, and Auckland is really rocking, to be honest. And I would think 10 years down the track, we'll be a force to be reckoned with. To give you the support you're looking for, if you're from the North Shore, we've got offices in Orewa and Albany. If you've come from the west, we've got one over in the number 1 building in Waitakere, Henderson, right in the city, Highbrook and Pukekohe. And we offer a lot of services through ATEED: business advice, research and development, business mentoring, network events, the Young Enterprise Scheme for new students coming through college, starting off right programs to help you get some training on how to actually start a business before you even get almost to the post box, to really get it going properly. And these are running the whole time. We've got a full calendar of events to help businesses grow. And we add value into the economy to help you determine what you want to do it as smoothly and to mitigate as much risk as possible so that you can come out the far end with as much revenue, health and well-being intact to take on a really exciting path of establishing your own business or growing a business, and particularly growing offshore. So we're looking to support companies that have got the ability to build a globally competitive business through research and development. And we're working with companies that we can help or need to figure out some of the equations that make their business stand out from the crowd, particularly if they're thinking of getting on a plane and going to introduce themselves to a very big brand overseas. All sorts of funds to assist in getting started, through to master students funds, right down through to global expert to help you make connections in offshore markets. So we've got it covered as far as the agencies of ATEED and Callaghan Innovation, which is the government supply. So the question today is, ideas are one thing, what happens is another. And this is really Chris Locke speaking. This is me from 20 odd years in the industry, 30 nearly, I guess. Coming through, I was marketing manager of Philips for 10 years. I launched Marantz into New Zealand. I displaced Sony as #1 while I was at Philips with Walkman. Had a lot of fun with consumer electronics. Moved out of there into my own importing and distributing company. Bought in just on 90 containers in my first year. That went really, really well. And from all of that experience, an opportunity presented to completely reverse everything and become an innovative company exporting ideas and starting something totally, totally new. And that was based on inventions that we'd been working on quietly for 3 years that suddenly showed that spark of reality. And then the decisions had to be made. What do I do? Do I become an exporter? Or do I let someone else play this new game? And I decided I'll go and play the game. So this is me. Ideas happen, but sometimes what happens is another. So what makes a really successful idea a reality? It's dead simple. It's people. It's people who can build great businesses, and it's people who can take great products and turn them into something to sell on the world stage that helps them and others gain wealth out of our economy. A quick glance, if people are looking at you or I at a business, they're wanting to make sure there's a problem, that it's been validated. You'll hear the word validated a lot. Massey University East Centre run courses specifically to help you start a business and validate your ideas if it's based around some new concept. Because without that, it's very, very difficult to get funding. And without it, it's very difficult to get support from your partner at home as well. So it's a professional step, I can tell you. We're looking for a return on investment. We're wanting to see that you've proven a pathway to market. So when you're going to go selling, you've at least spoken to someone who might buy it, some sort of proof of interest so that you can start to invest your time and money and other people's. It's got to be scalable to survive in today's market. It's a very big world out there, and it's very, very open now as a trading planet, really. So when you hop on the plane to go selling, you've got to be able to scale your business as quickly as possible to compete against all those other people on the plane. Barriers to entry we'll come to, but that's effectively you're building something. How do you protect it and put up barriers to stop others caving in on your business before you've got it to a point where it can push back with its own strength? And that's usually intellectual property. And the ability of the people to deliver. If you're unable to deliver, and you know you're unable to deliver your business ideas to the market, then we can help you work out a plan to find other people to deliver it. Not everyone's an entrepreneur. Sometimes they're great at ideas and then they like to step back quietly and let others do it. It's a little bit like the janitor owning the building, if you know. So, the clues when you're talking with the market about starting your own business are quite interesting. And what I'm going to show you through, take you through here today are some of the clues that the funders and the backers and the people who are going to work with you are looking for in you to help them make decisions whether they become involved. The first one is, if you walk in the door as a single inventor and you're looking at considering a government grant to start a business around your idea, I can almost tell you 9 times out of 10 it's not going to work. It's a fascinating thing to watch. You like the people, you like the idea, but it's just not holding together. If the people come in with one other person, there's just about a 50% greater chance it's going to work. If you bring in 1 or 2 people, then you're on your way, because you're starting to get the council around the table to make it bind into a proper business. The pitch, you've all heard about the elevator pitch and the way that you sell your business to other people to get support. It might be to your client, it might be to your wife or husband, it might be to your business partner you're thinking of, it might be to someone academic who you're just talking to and they're just challenging you. And what's really interesting is the ability to hold people's attention. Clearly in this case, the attention was not held very long, but the idea is to hold their attention long enough for them to buy into the basics of the idea, and that's why they call it an elevator pitch. You've got so long to pitch, they've got so much open time available, you've caught them on the elevator or in the lift. What can you get out of your head fast enough, well enough, that they think, I'm going to talk to you again? That's what we're looking for. So don't get bogged down. I had a very interesting client the other day, magnificent idea. 2 hours later, I was so deep in the minute workings of his technology, I'd completely lost the substance of what I'd gone to talk to him about. But he was happy. There has to be a problem. If there's not a problem, Cedric over there's definitely found a problem. But if there's not a problem, it's really hard to lift off a technology unless it's a novelty. And the $2 shops are pretty good proof that novelty can make money. But it's quite hard from New Zealand because we haven't got the manufacturing scales to do those sorts of things. So find a real problem. And then you've got to be able to be sure in your mind your thought processes as to how you analyse the problem and decided to take control of it. If you stumbled across it's one thing. If you stumbled across it and then thought hard about it, it's another. But if you're a bit of an alchemist where you're starting to bring together various ideas to form a new solution, then that's starting to take you a long way down the track towards turning someone's problem into your potential business. Some very good examples are in New Zealand. You've got so many cases of, particularly in New Zealand, where in a recession ideas burst out. Most of the good ideas out of Fisher and Paykel came under some sort of global recession or downturn. The dish drawer was one, the dryer was another, the gentle Annie was another. You know, you look back through the dates and you say, okay, we've got some sort of financial crisis going on. For some reason, the creative juices get going. Other ideas fire off at different times, and you've got Hamilton Jet, which is really interesting, and he came up with an idea of running up a river without a prop, so he could get up the river and not blow the bottom off his boat. There were so many ways he could have figured out how to create that business. He could have decided it's a line item. Now I check everybody on this. You come to me with your idea and I'll ask, is it a line item or is it something that can build its own company? If it's a line item, then it's best to think you're going to license it or sell it to someone who just puts it on their production line and it's shipping by Thursday, compared to I'm going to build a whole business around this thing. He could have decided he's got a pump, so it can be a line item for Mercury or someone. But he decided, no, I think there's more to this pump than just a pump. I think I can build a business. So then he started to play with boats. He put it in the boat and he started to build his company. So then he was in the ability to say, okay, now I can sell Hamilton Jet units to put in boats. He didn't get into boats, you notice. He might have played in boats occasionally, but he was in the power for boats. He got it to the point where now they're making these things. It's quite impressive when you look at the scale of the guy here. That they are now one of New Zealand's most substantial companies. When they go out into the world and start looking for research projects, they're probably the only company in New Zealand that cannot disguise who they are, because they're so dominant and well recognised in the world that by the mere question they ask, people will say, oh, that'll be Hamilton Jet. They're up to something. So it's that sort of company. But what's good about it is that they can now run their business any way they like. Excuse me a sec. And I went through that with my business. One of the lessons that I learned very quickly looking at mine with the experience of Philips and importing and all of these things, I was able to look at my ideas and say, we can license that and earn royalties, we can make it and put our own brand on it, or we can make it for other people and put their brand on it. We can cover the whole lot. And that's what's going on here inside Hamilton Jet. And that's what I mean by license. OEM, which is original equipment manufacturer, you're making it for other people. Own brand, and the other one is own design brand. You design it for other people and let them do what they like. Either way, there's license fees, royalties. And if you're making it yourself and selling it, you've got to be sure, as the founder of the company, that you're paying royalties back out of your own company, back to wherever the thought bank sits. So if in New Zealand we're exporting product under our own brand, The royalties are the same as what maybe Logitech or someone's paying us offshore as well. That way everything's looked after and your patent costs are covered. Nice segue into patents. A lot of New Zealanders make a fatal error. They just want a patent, particularly when they're inventing something new, and 9 times out of 10 they'll file it themselves with the patent office, and then it won't be robust enough to hold up to any form of attack, and it won't grow with the product, and it won't have identified the real novelty of the product to make it a safe patent. So take good counsel, go to an intellectual property advisor and figure out what to do. There's a lot of strategies. In our case, we built patents for Africa. It's called a ring fence. We had our primary patent, but until they got strong enough, we wrote patents for all the other things that we thought of that were novel that helped this thing work. And we ring fenced it with all of these ideas. And when people started to look at copying us or trying to figure out what we were doing, they hit this jolly wall of patents. Most of them weren't published because they were in application stage, so they were still secret, so the people didn't know what to do with them and they left us alone. The only attack that we had was from another company that ring-fenced their patents, and they saw us as a financial threat, not a technical threat. So it's one being against the other at that point. That's a whole other discussion and a lot more fun. Plan B, if it doesn't hold together, what are you going to do? Plan B is usually, let's just be first to market, do it properly, get out there, make some money, but do it properly so that it just doesn't fizz after your first week. Because what we find is a lot of people have really, really good ideas, but they just can't get them out into the market. And there's a phenomenon out there that I find very interesting, and it's particularly with inventive folk, is that they just hold their idea until it either breaks out or collapses. So I've symbolised that by the train breaking out. That's the idea, either crashing and burning as a train wreck, or breaking out despite the inventor trying to keep it in. One of the reasons, and this is a real challenge to you all if you look at your own business, is the need for extreme and total honesty with yourself. Because I do find a lot of inventors start to become a little bit deceptive. They had an idea once that was perfect, but over time they've started to find maybe it's not, so they keep adapting. I've seen people go through 3 generations of wealth for an idea that will never work. And one guy I found, he was on cabbage water, him and his wife, literally cabbage water, when I found them. 18 months later we had that shipping out of a factory in China. But without that, it would have been a disaster. So just watch those signs and please be very honest with yourself. Because what you've got to do, everyone's excited about the research and development. Can you see that all right? It looks a bit light, doesn't it? Let me... yeah, no, there's a light just above it. Is that better? You can see the picture. We've got the research and development, which we've been talking about, but once you reach a point where you think, oh, this thing looks like it's going to work, I'm starting to get quite warm and fuzzy here, then you've got to start working on the other aspects of your business. And you can work your way up through intellectual property, manufacturing, logistics and the like, but what you really need is an entrepreneur. It's really hard to get one of these things going without that sort of drive and energy. And then you need marketing and sales, and you need governance. If you haven't got governance in place, it gets really, really hard to organise funding, backing, alliances offshore. My importing distributing business, I immediately registered the name as Australasia. It was a New Zealand company with an Australasian title. So when I went offshore, people thought it was as big as Australia because New Zealand still didn't count. It wasn't until the America's Cup that my businesses started to get any airtime offshore because New Zealand was too small. They just didn't think we could do anything down here in those spaces. But you've got to get a director and you've got to get an independent director to keep everyone balanced. And if you're looking for funding from the government or venture capitalists, those are the sorts of things I'm definitely looking for. Then we have a look at the people. What sort of person are you really? There are all sorts of people who tinker. The one that I talked about in 18 months into the factory after the cabbage juice, he was a tinkerer. He had an idea, but he was just creeping forward. There's the lifestyle who just goes in and enjoys the garden shed. And they can make money, and that's their lifestyle, that's their decision, that's great. The visionary, that guy's a bit like me, who sort of spots something and think really big and go, right, we're going to do that over there, and it's going to be as big as that hill, and this is how we're going to do it. Quite dangerous people, they're quite autocratic, you know, you'll get to know me one day. But I remember coming back from overseas, and the guys were having trouble in the lab. I walk in, okay, do that. No thinking, I just knew to do that because I was one of the inventors, I was the entrepreneur and the visionary. Just do that, I'll go to America, I'll be back in 2 weeks, let's see how it goes, I'll come back, it's working. If they ask how I figured that out, it's too hard to tell them. I'm that sort of guy. And some of you will be that sort of guy. Fun, dangerous, entertaining, but you've got to find the right business for those sorts of guys. An entrepreneur, we all know entrepreneurs, but an entrepreneur, much more interesting. If you've got a job and you're in a big corporate like I was in Philips, you can always invent inside a corporate if you know what you're doing and you've got the right networks working in the company. So you become an internal entrepreneur inside a big organisation. So if you're looking at going into a business but you just don't have the wherewithal or the situation's not right, think about becoming an entrepreneur, getting inside a big company and having a ball. It can be done. You've got to be trustworthy and coachable. Coachable is one of the most important things. Most people that we see are so focused on what they've got, they just simply don't hear the words of wisdom being freely given by lots and lots of people. So you've got to be coachable. And the driving force for me is to build a dynasty company. There's a part in Sweden, halfway up the country, that the youngest company I think is 400 years old, and they're still the leaders in their craft, and they've diversified, intensified, and computerised and done everything right to get themselves up to that point. Can you deliver? Have you got the financial ability? Can you manage people? Have you got some sort of plan in place? Just about every inventor looking for research and development doesn't have a business plan. How do you know it's going to work? You're looking for money from the taxpayers. How can you give us confidence as taxpayers in the room now to you, because you've invented it and you haven't got a business plan and you come looking for $60,000? It doesn't work. So the coaching then kicks in. All those things I talked about before, we go in and we start to turn you into a business plan and a businessman. Fast failure now. I've got a comment there. VCs will respect you more if you've got a few failures. It's quite interesting because they don't want you to fail on their watch. They might be putting a few $1 million into your company one day and they'd like to be sure that you might have done all your failing before them. So in New Zealand, we have this weird tall poppy sort of syndrome, and we don't respect entrepreneurs' failures. We don't understand what got them up in the morning to do remarkable things, and we don't support them when it just doesn't work, despite every good effort they've done and things we don't understand that might have pushed against them. But the thing that we do find happening with a lot of companies and a lot of people is they don't also know when to actually stop and just put it away and move on. And I'm a real believer in fast failure. Fail, learn, move on, before you've sunk too much money and too much of your life. It actually comes down to your life more than money in the end, because the money gone will impact on your life. The time gone drastically on your life. And then all the other relationships within your life get cleared up. So get those things right and you'll be fine. It's got to be a technical stretch. If you're going to create a business, even today, when you walk around out here today and you look at those people, you think, well, where's my business going to sit in amongst that? It's got to be different. The only way generally to get it different is to have some sort of stretch that they're not prepared to do and they don't know about, you've thought about and you are prepared to do. So we're looking for a technical stretch. And it's quite important down here that it's more satisfying and rewarding to go where others fear to tread. And I can certainly say I've done that in my career. It's a blast. It scares the crap out of my wife, but it's an awful lot of fun for me and it can get some results. But you've got to get the right balance there. I love this quote that a man's mind once stretched out to a new idea never goes back to its original dimensions. And if that's the one thing you take out of today, that'll be the thing that will probably sow the seed for you to move on, because it's just the way the brain works. You ask the brain a question, it has to answer. Another part of the brain will say, don't answer just now, but it's already made the answer. You practice it, you'll find I've already answered the question, I'm just going to keep mum on it. And it's exactly the same with this. You learn something, it's there, and it's there, and it's there. And that's what helps build the business and the business intelligence. You've got to have integrity and honesty, and you've got to enjoy the journey. People smell it when you walk in a room. Successful businessmen, major corporates, they can read you the moment you walk in the door. They say that first 3 seconds of how you present is the one that will make or break the deal. But even more than that, they can actually smell it. They can walk around a business and they go, it's going broke and it's going to happen in about 3 weeks' time. And you've not said a thing, and you've done all the dusting. You know, it's just the intelligence of being in business for a long time. So you've got to be able to present correctly, and you've got to be able to take on the challenges. You've got to be able to talk to the big people And you've got to be able to do it in such a way that they are confident talking to you and happy with the responses they're getting back, and that you're confident talking to them and you're happy with the responses you're getting back. And then you're starting to sow the seeds to help you getting your business and your ideas into the right framework so that you can move forward. The biggest failing I've seen in New Zealand with anybody in any business, no matter what it is, whether it's creating a widget or trying to make an electric car or a space rocket, and we've done them all in New Zealand, is expertise. We are not professional in the way we appoint expertise in our economy. Most of us, when we're thinking of an idea, will say, you know, old John, he used to do that. I'll go and talk to him and get him to do the welding and figure out the metalwork for me. Or you'll say, I was at school with this guy here. Yeah, I've watched his business. He's into printing and he's into exporting. I'll talk to him. Suddenly you've got an expert in your midst who's not the right fit. It's most important you go out and find the best expert pretty much in the world. Because if you want to make money and export out of here, and you want to, say, call on Tata and sell into India an idea that's got a bit of steel in it, and he wants steel product, you know, unless you're 1, 2, or 3 in the world, why would he even open the door? He's got a very, very full diary. If you're dealing with Walmart, it can take a year to get an appointment. If you muck it up, it can take 18 months to get another one. Can you sustain that? Can you work to that? Why muck it up? Let's get it right. Get the right expertise so when you turn up to these companies, you can present in such a way that they are immediately starting to lean towards you and draw you into them, and that you can feel the body language. The moment they do this, you're well on your way. I went to London, had a massive patent dispute going on because we were up against a company that was publicly listed in the UK, same technology, we had patents, they weren't hitting, but we were making money and they weren't, and there were 4 of us in New Zealand and there were 100 of them in England. So there was a major issue going on at their board we didn't know anything about until one day the phone rang and the managing director said, and this was really funny because all my engineers were looking at their company on the UK Stock Exchange listings right at that moment, talking about what's going on in that company. My phone rings down this end of the office. I'd like to talk to you about modus operandi. My brain says they want to buy us. Can you be in London on Monday? Absolutely. It's Friday at 2 o'clock. Not a problem. Can you come in? Can you be prepared? I'll be there. I worked non-stop, 3 days, got on the plane, slept, and then read everything to London because I knew what was going to happen. There was a filthy rich company with big lawyers in the legal district of London. If you know the city, as they call it, big scary place, Monets everywhere, huge halls, massive ceilings. I walked in and there's this table about as long as this room and there's lawyers from one end to the other and the inventor there and the owner here. And they started talking. It was fine. I'd prepared everything. I was ready to talk. I was confident. I was watching the room and because I was confident and ready and I'd done all this preparation, they were reading that confidence and I was reading, okay, they're leaning a little bit towards this is cool. So I did what most New Zealanders are really good at. I got up and pulled all the water and the tea and the flowers and everything off the table. I said, let's just take this wall down that you've built. Let's get a conversation going here. And the big scary lawyer who owned the law firm said, you know, for a cup of tea? Straight away I knew we had a deal. By 2 o'clock that afternoon, no due diligence cash offer on the business. So I'd never worked so hard in my life for a deal. What I did in 3 days was ridiculous. My wife thought I was nuts. She came down to take me to the plane knowing I hadn't slept for 3 days, but it worked. And what happened there? It was the fact that I'd taken the time to get the right experts early on in the company so that when I started to prepare to go to London, my expertise based on the shoulders of those experts was actually superior to the expertise of this massive company in London. So I could talk. I could talk straight on the nose on any topic that they wanted to bring up. That's what you want, and you can't do it yourself. You can't learn all that. So you've got to surround yourself with the people who can help you learn all that. The next thing is, can you conceptualize how to build it so that it can be the top of the field? Can you get your head around those algorithms? Can you think like this guy that I'm going to build the biggest building in New York and this is how I'm going to do it and I'm going to do it myself? You know, so you've got to do that. But one of the drivers is a great idea needs 5 things. It needs a problem. It's number 1. Without a problem, you haven't got a business, really. You need these 3 Gs. The gyro person who's got all the energy to get it going, usually the engineer. The go-to person who can get out there and sell, And the governance person who gets all the paperwork and the administration, everything in place, so when you sell, you don't get rolled over. And the bank likes to talk to you, and you're safe in your contracts and warranties and all those things. And you need cash. So when you walk in to see anybody, if nothing else, if you can say to them, I've got the P, the 3 Gs and the C lined up, I'm ready to talk to anybody. Because you can be this big and still deal because you've got these things in place. And that's what we can help you work towards. I'll go quickly through here, but if you're going offshore, it's all about return on investment. Is it worth your while getting up every day to start this business? Unless you're making this amount of percentage return on your investment, you may be wasting your time and better off thinking of another idea that does give you that scale. And the venture capitalists offshore, they're really looking for a large investor payoff, and the funders, why wouldn't they? That's why they're giving up their money that they've spent 30 years earning. But it's how they go about helping you massage a company that's scalable and competitive on the world stage. And then most of all, Peter Mayer came to see me one day. We were friendly, and he was, we were talking about business one day, and he came and he reminded me of the biggest lesson of them all, and that is focus. When you're starting a new business with a new idea, the whole world is your platform. And you get into a very dangerous position where you think, well, if I don't satisfy Logitech there, we've got Sony over there, and if I don't do them, this Boeing project's going to go wrong, if I don't do that. And you're just bouncing, and you spend your whole time flying, and you become like I did, the #1 flyer in Air New Zealand on their miles, So that was great, champagne and newspapers and slippers every flight, that was cool, but you were everywhere. In fact, I flew in from 3 weeks overseas, 8 hours on the ground, 4 hours at home, 4 hours at work, back to 3 weeks in America. It wasn't long after that my wife said, why don't we meet in Singapore occasionally? So that's what we started doing. I'd go up and down from Singapore. Focus, just focus. And then these 5 E's. I told you about the P, G and the C. The 5 E's, you can't quite see them. Without an entrepreneur, which is what you guys will be here by the very fact you're in the room, it's hard work. You need that sort of guy. Without the ability to create a scalable enterprise, then it's really a lifestyle business. Without education, constant education in the company, you won't be able to get your intelligence high enough to compete with the guys who are competing with you. Without engineering and applying science, you won't get the competitive advantage in the product to make it worth someone buying from you in the first place. And then without exports, you'll peak at $5 million and you'll have a batch and a BMW and a boat, but that'll be it, because New Zealand is so small. So get out into the export market, and it's a much more exciting ride. So the question then is this the one? Is your company the one that backers would look to back? Are you feeling like you are the one when you go to speak to people, they've got confidence that you can do what you're saying you're going to do? All of these things are in people's minds when they're looking at you. I very specifically chose this picture for this slide because we looked at the motor racing, the Grand Prix and all of those things. You see Red Bull everywhere. It defies logic. You look at Coca-Cola, how big it is and how much more money it's got, and they're just, and Red Bull's everywhere. What are they doing? They are telling the world that we're the company, the people and the product, we're #1, so suck up. We are #1, and it's working, isn't it? It's just working. Even our V8 supercars now are Red Bull. And what are they doing? Oh, they're winning, aren't they? There's something in the psyche that attracts winners to winning situations. If you've got an opportunity that really works, money will come to you. You won't really need to ask for it forever. You will to get it started, but ultimately people will be tapping you on the shoulder. So through what I've done here, I've tried to give you a brief snapshot of pulling together a number of strings so that you can sit at home and say, okay, if I get that right and that right, that'll happen, and it's starting to put a point, and we're starting to move this thing forward. And if I'm not fully capable of doing that, then it's time to either bring in a team around me or sidle up to someone and take your idea inside a bigger company where your risks are at a ratio that you're comfortable with and your family are comfortable with and you can manage. There's all sorts of ways to attack this. The most important thing is when you get it right, everyone just wraps their arms around you and gives you a good time because they all want to share in your success. And that's Red Bull. If ever I saw one, it's Hamilton Jet. No one would deny a conversation with Hamilton Jet if they asked for some advice. It just happens that way. So I hope that helps. I hope it helps you think, okay, I'm thinking about a business. What can I do? But the most important thing is think a little bigger, think a little scale, certainly think export, because that's where the wealth comes from for our little economy. Without that, it's going to be a very interesting road for New Zealand. So I'm in this game to take my knowledge and try and help people get out so that their first order shipment can be 35,000 audio units as a test sample rather than, say, 2,000 for all of New Zealand in a year. Scale when you step offshore. Any quick questions?
You mentioned there's the entrepreneur and there's the person who just brings up idea and steps back and lets the entrepreneur does that. How would that person go about making a profit out of this?
A license fee or a royalty for the idea back. So you do a package and you prepare it and you maybe license it to a company by field of use, and then you let people ship it in that market out of that factory and you click the ticket and then you move on. It's the short and simple way to do it.
So you need to pay them and train.
Maybe. You can license know-how. You can license anything. Like Greenacres is basically a licensing model. He came up with an idea to do lawns. He's licensed it by a franchise fee, and he has royalties from the people clipping the lawns. So it can be done. We can talk all these things. All right. Thank you.